Gents, previewing a big game this weekend in the Premier League. Let's have a look at Everton against Arsenal at Goodison Park. And Goodison should be rocking this Sunday, Nick Mendola, because a deal's been agreed with 777 Partners, a Miami-based investment firm, to finally end the Moshiri era at Everton. It's still kind of some paperwork and legalities and has to be signed off by the Premier League and other regulatory bodies in the UK. Seems like it's going to happen, though. And this new era for Everton, it's needed, right? The protests from fans, it's been going on for a long, long time now. They've been limping along. Obviously, good news that the Bramley Moore Dock Stadium, that site, the funding for that has all been secured by this deal that does go through. So that's great for Everton's future. But in the here and the now, there's a lot to worry about still on the pitch. But yeah, your thoughts on this news for Everton ahead of this game?
I think it's great. I think as obviously things can go poorly, and we all know that, and those things need to be said. But as someone who, again, watching a lot of Newcastle over the years, and just basically there becomes, whether it's scapegoating or not, a figure that kind of needs to go, or not needs to go. That's the wrong way to put it. But when removed from the situation, whether by choice or not, gives everybody a chance to swing. And Everton has had a chance to swing in the opposite direction, not necessarily because of the owner, but because of their situation, right? Like, they could have been relegated 2 seasons in a row, and no club at a certain point is too big to fail. And it did feel like at times that Everton could drift. Look at the clubs who were Premier League mainstays for a while, a Sunderland, a Pompey. They can dip down way further than one tier. And I just think this gives everybody at the club a chance to exhale and just go out there and try and get some performances. The opponent could be better for this situation, but yeah, it is a really nice moment, I think, for the Toffees, and a tough spot for Arsenal to walk into.
It is, and I think the one kind of the mood, right, Andy? I think we try and sum it up in one. It's kind of hope, relief, and then maybe a bit of trepidation as well, because we still don't know the new owners. They own a lot of teams in Europe. If you look at their portfolio, obviously Hertha Berlin didn't go well for them in the Bundesliga. Sevilla is probably their biggest team that they own, and there's been some other issues around the world on different teams they own in different leagues in terms of the ambition and the investment. I don't think all of a sudden it's like Everton have got loads of money to spend. It seems like they'll be stable, and it's kind of nice that there's maybe a partnership with these other teams that they can work with, and there's not complete novices coming into the building. And this was just needed, right, for almost this new era, and even not a new era, but just a fresh start, and wipe the slate clean and just let the players that are there, let Sean Dyche do his job without having to answer all these questions in the background week after week, day after day. So Nick said it nicely there. A nice moment.
Yeah, it is a nice moment, but it is just a moment, and it needs to be just a moment as well, because the situation on the field, which is what really matters here, they're not buying in to have a championship club in their portfolio playing in a 52,000 seat brand new stadium. That's a disaster situation for Everton. That's obviously what the club is trying to avoid. But if you look at the results they've had so far this season, the fact they have just 1 point, and they were very fortunate to get that 1 point against Sheffield United as well. You look at the teams they've played so far: Fulham, Aston Villa, Wolves, and Sheffield United. They've not played any of the big sides yet in the league, and they have just 1 point. And so those next 15 games to get to the halfway point of the season are going to be really difficult. And so the focus has to switch, at least for the coaches and the players, and I'm sure it is to some degree, needs to focus immediately on what happens on the field beginning with this weekend. Like you say, Joe, the fact that they have to start this kind of era with Arsenal coming back out of the international break, they're probably one of the teams that has had more opportunity to maybe have most of the group together and train under Sean Dyche this week than certainly Arsenal and a lot of the big teams in the Premier League. Maybe there's a little bit of positive to be taken from that, but it's just, it's been bad to watch for Everton, certainly this season and for a couple years now. And so it's just, maybe this does give them the confidence and unifies everybody and brings everybody back together, because we talk a lot about, Manchester United is a perfect example. Everybody at that club is pulling in different directions. Everybody has their own idea about what's best for them, what's best for the club. It feels like Everton has had that going on for quite a long time, and they've been wayward and just kind of lost out in the wilderness. Maybe this brings them back in and gets them all together. I hope so. For their sake, they really, really need it.
Yeah, they needed it when Sean Dyche came in last year, and he provided that, and obviously got a big win in his first game against Arsenal, of all teams, at Goodison. So, I don't know. It just seems like Dyche now, he knows how to set teams up to be difficult to break down against the bigger teams. And I just feel like this could kind of suit Everton, this kind of situation, and playing within themselves and be like, okay, against the likes of Wolves, Sheffield United, Fulham, they're expected to come out and win those games. I just don't think it suits the players that they have. They're better at being reactionary to the balls dropping to them in certain situations and working in systems. So, I mean, you're right. If it wasn't for Jordan Pickford, they wouldn't have grabbed their first point of the season against Sheffield United last time out. So he's been in good form, and they can just somehow cut out these defensive mistakes they've been making earlier in the season. It might be okay. It's not going to be great. It's not going to be a sensational season for Everton, but anything better than a relegation scrap for them, and that's a really good campaign. So they'll be looking for mid-table now. But if we focus on Arsenal, Nick, obviously their expectations are way up at the top of the table. Looks really good against Man United. I know they left it late to win, but they made hard work of it. But just seems like Declan Rice, we're seeing the best of him now in this system, and we're just seeing the glimmers and flickers from Arsenal that, okay, this is the team that pushed Man City all the way last season, and they haven't really missed a beat. But now this is interesting this week with the Champions League coming up. How does Arteta rotate the team? How does he keep these players fresh? Because that's going to be interesting for them, right? Especially over the next few months when the Champions League group stage is here and will cause a lot of problems for him.
The Gunners need to do themselves a favor and take the game by the scruff of the neck early with finishing. Not unlike we talked about the U.S. men's national team, right? And they left it late, in a one goal game. And we've seen that even with Forest, where they went up 2-0. And we talked about it, oh man, we would have liked to see them get a third goal. Well, Arsenal would take that right now. Against Palace, it's 0-0 at the break away. Against Fulham, they're down 1-0 in the first minute. Against Manchester United, they needed the late goals to put them away. How much would Mikel Arteta love? And I'm sure the players are thinking about this too. Hey, can we get a 2-goal lead at the break? Can we sub some of our guys off after 55 minutes so they're fresher for the Champions League? I think Arsenal needs to start asserting itself with finishing early in the game. And I think if we go back, and again, Arsenal fans will correct me, I'm sure, but if we go back and look at last year, they didn't have as many crazy need to get back in this game moments. There were a lot more comfortable wins. And I think they could use that right now.
Yeah, they could, right, Andy? I mean, just kind of to build confidence because the performances haven't been great, but they've been getting better, I think, over the last few weeks. So that's a good sign for Mikel Arteta. And like Nick mentioned it there, just finish teams off and just basically do what you're supposed to do, because you're dominating all other areas of the pitch, and they should do that against Everton. So your thoughts on Arsenal, and then give me a score prediction for the weekend, mate.
This is a struggle for every young team as they develop and come of age, if you will. They're always going to struggle with you come out with the confidence and the energy the way that they do every single game, and then you get into a situation. We've seen it 2 seasons running with this team. You have something in your hands, something to lose come the end of the season, and they've lost it both times. On a much smaller level, game to game, they're kind of, I think, working through that right now. They have to win this one this weekend because their next 6 games in the Premier League include Spurs, Manchester City, Chelsea, and Newcastle. 4 of the next 6 going to be teams that want to be there in the top 4 this season. So I think they do get a victory over Everton, home or away. It almost doesn't matter at this point. I think Everton are just in that spot. So I'll go with 2-1. Everton look a bit inspired, but certainly not on the level of Arsenal.
I'm going 2-0, Nick. And that fixture list you just read out there, Andy, is pretty terrifying for Arsenal when you factor in the Champions League midweek in between a lot of those games. So huge test for them. But Nick, comfortable win for Arsenal. Andy and I have gone for that. Do you agree?
Yeah. I mean, Everton showing some hints through Danjuma and others that they can find at the back of the goal. Beto scoring in the cup game. But I think like a 3-1 here is possible. Especially Arsenal is not going to sleep on it. They lost this fixture last year, and it was their looking at it now, is their first loss in like 3 or 4 months. And I just think they'll be ready for this. The players remember that. Players, they keep that taste in their mouth, almost a year later.
Well, it was the start of the title slipping away for them as well.
Yeah. Let's see what it does for them this season. But Arsenal are heavily favoured against Everton this weekend. But we know Sean Dyche, the Toffees, the crowd at Goodison, especially with this positive news about the potential change in ownership, they can cause an upset. And it will be very, very interesting if Everton get an early goal to see how this one pans out. Head over to Pro Soccer Talk on NBCSports.com for all the latest on Everton against Arsenal, how to watch information, preview, team news, live analysis and reaction during the game, and of course, video highlights. We'll have you covered. It's going to be a fun one at Goodison this weekend.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch more videos all season long. And for even more Premier League content, from original series to live matches, head over to Peacock. And be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend on USA Network and on Peacock. We will see you there.